Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we'll talk to an international thought leader on trade law and why it's become such a hot topic. That's just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I cannot think of a time in my adult life where the supply chain has been so broken. Baby food shortages, chip shortages to make just about everything we have with technology. And that, of course, brings a lot of international litigation and advice from my next guest, Olga Torres. She is the managing member of Torres Trade Law. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so first of all, explain what trade law is.
So trade law is basically, the United States has several regulatory regimes that govern what we bring into the country. So that would be what we call the import side of things. And we have export controls and economic sanctions. And the export and economic sanctions world, it relates to our ability to control the export of certain technologies or defense items to certain countries. And economic sanctions, which is a lot of what people have been hearing against Russia, economic sanctions. That's a tool the United States uses to effect foreign policy, right? So we tell certain actors, foreign actors, if you do business with our enemies, we may list you in a, blacklist, if you will, specially designated. We have a variety of lists. Or certain countries, right? We say Cuba, we don't like what you're doing. We have full embargo against Cuba. So Russia doesn't have a full embargo, but that's sort of a gist of what trade means. It's related to also national security and foreign policy.
And you have a number of services that you offer. We're going to put your website up so you can see this. Sanctions, international, internal investigations, customs. That's a lot. Have you been busy?
Yes. So, and it's very focused. I mean, what we do day and night literally is trade and national security. So in terms of corporate investigations, it's related to trade, companies exporting something that they require licenses, for example, and they didn't obtain them from Department of State or from Department of Commerce, or companies, for example, diverting product to Iran or certain countries. So that's sort of what we do, yeah.
Yes, and obviously Russia is in the news every single day. For a U.S. company that is doing any kind of business in Russia, are they now in trouble? Would they come to somebody like you?
So yes, they can come to someone like me. We don't have a comprehensive embargo against Russia, unlike what we have, let's say, with Cuba or Iran. We have made it very difficult, extremely difficult to conduct business in Russia. For the most part, anything that could be, and I'm getting very technical, but anything that could be controlled under the commerce list, so dual-use items, even things that before didn't require licenses, now they would, and they're not going to be easily approved. But for the most part, anything that is not controlled can go to Russia as long as we're not doing business with certain parties. We have listed, the government has listed a lot of the Russian government, a lot of oligarchs in lists, so we cannot trade with them. But for the most part, other products can be sent to Russia as long as they're not controlled. What we're seeing in practice is people are so scared of running into issues with respect to, for example, payment. We've had situations where clients call us and say, it's completely legal to ship these items to Russia. We review, it is. And freight forwarders are too afraid of touching the cargo and sending it. Wow. And I think a lot of it has been some companies just saying we're going to pull out of the market. We don't want to mess with it. And also a lot of it has to do with they don't like what Russia, what the government of Russia is doing in Ukraine. So, yeah.
Speaking of Russia, you just wrote a brilliant blog about it. We're going to put that up. Tell us about that blog.
So this is, like I said, we have embargoes and export controls against a variety of countries. And the government basically came out and said, and this was, I believe, the Department of Justice specifically, and said, we're serious. We're going to go after American companies or even foreign companies that divert U.S. product into Russia, and we're taking they've created task forces that are going to be looking at this, making sure that people don't say, well, we can't really ship it, but we're going to find a way of sending it over there.
Yes.
Because a lot of things are going to be needed, and there's always the black market.
You've received a lot of notoriety in your field. We've got a little clip here of a reappointment. Tell us about that.
Yes, so this is a reappointment to the North Texas District Export Council. Mm-hmm. So it's a group here in North Texas. It's appointed by it's basically under the Department of Commerce, and we help companies basically find markets abroad and export products or technologies from the U.S.
And a ton of awards from your industry. Let's just put that up. I mean, look at that. That's you're incredible.
Oh, no, you're kind. We've been around for a while, and I'm not going to say my age, but so I think once you're in business for a while, you get lucky sometimes.
All right, tell us about your journey. How did you always want to be a lawyer?
Interesting. When I was little, I did not. I wanted to be a marine biologist. And I don't know, I think my dad was a lawyer, and eventually I just said, I'm going to do law. And that's
cool.
what I did. Yeah.
And how did you choose trade law?
I think it chose me. When I was going to SMU, and I was, back then I was an international student, so I wanted to leverage my languages, and I felt like I'm very international, so I'm going to do international law. And in Dallas, there was not a ton of that. So, and I also graduated in it was around 2007 when I started looking for internships. So there were nobody was giving, nobody had openings. So I ended up emailing so many people, and I really wanted international. So I found a boutique law firm, and they did international trade.
Yes.
As it turns out, international trade, the actual practice of international trade, it's federal law. Mm. So it's not as international as you may think. It is international in the sense that we are regulating what we send to other countries or what we bring from other countries, but what we do is basically Department of State, Department of Defense, Department of Commerce, Department of Treasury, so it's regulatory, all federal law.
Okay,
yeah.
When did you decide to break out and start your own firm?
So I started with a firm, and after that I went to a big DC law firm. I was there for a couple of years, and then at some point I was like, you know what, I think it's time to do my own, and I did.
That's cool. And it had to be scary, because I know a lot of attorneys who, they're just not good business people. They don't know how to hire the right team.
Yeah, I think so, and that's an interesting question. Law school trains you to be a lawyer, right? Like, it doesn't train you to be a business person, and that's true. I think this type of law, just the nature of it, how niche it is, and how technical it is, it lends itself to be able to be done in a boutique setting. So we represent very large companies, and I think because we're known in our industry as niche specialized. So I think it's just it's like tax law in a way. Tax
Sure.
law, you can have boutique law firms, and they represent very large companies, similar in our world. Yeah.
Is there a lot of pressure on you when you represent a very large company?
At least, as of not too long ago, they didn't know, right? They had in-house counsel, but we're so specialized that they still have to bring outside counsel for what we do. For the most part, that's still the case. We are seeing, as you mentioned, it's becoming a very hot and trendy type of topic. So we are seeing more companies creating in-house trade departments.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time. So final thoughts. What would you like to leave the viewer with?
Pay attention to trade. It's really good for our economy, and I think electing leaders that understand trade and that understand how interconnected we are. Right now, we're decoupling from, for example, China and things like that. So it will affect everybody eventually. So it's really important to stay on top of it.
Outstanding. Thank you for coming on the show. We're going to end with your website, which is torrestradelaw.com. Olga Torres, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
You bet. And that's it for now. We'll see you next time.